2, 1. Boom. And we are live. Pierre Andresen from House of Highlights, Bleacher Report, colleague, friend. How are you doing?
Good, bro. How you doing?
I'm living. I feel great. Just came back from UFC 261, like with fans, and it was insane. Right? That was actually my first UFC event I've ever been to, and I actually got to cover it, so it's pretty cool. I've never seen a crowd like that. Like, I've been to a lot of NBA games. Like, this UFC crowd was just, I don't know if it's because they're all drunk. I'm not sure what it is, but it was different. So I'm living large.
Oh, yeah. I saw you doing a thing with that on social media. I saw some pictures people was posting. I'm not a big UFC guy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like, all the UFC fighters, anything like that. But I could see that one was a big deal. It was everywhere. You couldn't ignore it. It was on my timeline. It was on my Instagram.
Yep.
So I saw that you was there, and I was like, okay, my boy into the UFC thing. You was breaking down and shit. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, a little something. I try to be like the Swiss Army knife, talk about a little bit of everything, any sport. Baseball is what I lack, so I'm going to have to lean on you for the baseball knowledge. Yep. But no, yeah, there was 3 titles, and it was like fan favorites. Tom Brady was in the building, Chad Ochocinco, Antonio Brown, Jake Paul, Tim Tebow. Like, it just everyone was there. It was lit. But
yeah, I seen Ocho and Tom Brady talk and hug it out.
Yeah.
He does something with Bleacher Report. He does a BR betting thing. So I saw that through Bleacher Report. Mike Evans was there next to Tom Brady, who I'm a big fan of. I saw Jake Paul, Logan Paul. Something was happening with that. And then I saw Conor McGregor saying, this is what happens when real fighters fight and not YouTubers or blog people. So yeah. It's getting popping. It's getting, and for a guy that's not into it, I'm definitely seeing it and seeing it unfold into, something that's bubbling up to pop off.
Yeah, it was good. And if I could have told Chad Ochocinco to not bet his money, I would have. I was telling people, do not bet Masvidal for this fight, but he's a fan favorite. So people are like, oh, Masvidal's gonna. I'm like, no, I'm trying to tell you, like, there's just. Okay. What was that?
No, I didn't know he was a fan favorite.
Oh, yeah. He's a huge, especially in Florida, too. He's from Miami, so everyone was going crazy for him. And Chad Ochocinco's like, I'm betting my money on you. And I'm like, oh, Lord, you're about to lose your money. And Masvidal's great. He's really talented, but, yeah, he's not on Usman's level. But you're a hooper, so I want to pick your brain with some hoops. Here we go. So I've said this a while back, and I'm going to say it again. And people call me crazy. I think, okay, so let me just go out and say it. The MVP award needs to be changed. And they need to change it to best player or best season. And the reason why I say best player, because I feel like if you get, I think maybe you and I have talked about this on a live before, but if you get the title of best player, I feel like that holds some weight. Like, it's like bragging rights, like, I'm the best player. And then you can compare legacies from this point on. Like, hey, I was the best player for X amount of years. I was the best player for this X amount of years. I think it'd be a little bit easier, and I think it'd give players a little bit more motive to be like, oh, I want to win this, because there's so many different definitions of valuable or why we give out the MVP award. Like, someone may give it out because it's stats. The other one is narrative and storyline. This person just left him, so this, or it's historical value, triple-double. I feel like if you go off best player, then that guy has bragging rights, and if you don't want him to get it anymore, then be better than him. Am I crazy?
I mean, no, but it would still have the same issues to me, because how would you define? There's never been a clear-cut best player besides, like, LeBron James this year. Like, who was the best player this year? To you,
LeBron.
Best player, LeBron this year?
Yeah, it's LeBron's the best player in the world. Michael Jordan, he was the best player in the world. So it's like, okay, yeah, he may have missed some games, but we see it time and time again. The MVP will shrink in the postseason. And we're like, okay, look, this guy's not the MVP. It's like, okay, if we know there's an issue with who's getting the MVPs, why do we keep going about it the same way?
Because I think it's the argument. I don't think LeBron James is the best player this season. I don't think he's the best player this season. Because, number one, you just hit on it. I can't even remember the last time I seen LeBron on the floor. And then number two, me and you both know as basketball people, LeBron James isn't even trying to be the best player right now. His goal is to win a championship. So once you hit a certain level in your career, certain guys aren't even trying to be. They're literally coasting. You know what I mean? Because he knows the bigger picture, which I respect more. I have no problem. I know some people have problems. I've talked. Combo is actually a guy that was like, man, yeah, Anthony Davis, he could be better. And I'm telling Combo, like, Anthony Davis has been through that when he's given us the numbers and he's, you know what I mean? He's now on a championship team. He's fresh off a championship. He understands that that's the important thing, is being ready for the playoffs to win that ultimate thing at the end of the season. Anthony Davis has been all NBA, all-star, top 5, top this at his position with the Pelicans. It didn't mean anything. Now he finally won a championship. It's like, oh, this is much more better than all of that with the Pelicans. Let me value myself and prepare myself for that instead of trying to be a top 5 guy during the regular season, which never really got me anything. Now I can just coast through, get to the playoffs, and win a championship. So it's like, I think LeBron is the overall best player, but specifically this season, it would be hard for me to call LeBron James the best player.
So that would be two different things: best player and best season. And then, if we want to do that, then if we do best season, I think that makes more sense. Like Russell Westbrook's triple-double best season, he wasn't the most valuable. It's like, okay, James Harden had the best season, like that I get, but value and what was that?
Westbrook off that team though, that team ain't anything. It wasn't much with him, so you take him off of him. He has some value there. I think he was one of, if not the clutchest player that year as well.
Yeah, he had a historical season, and that's true. But I think there's a reason why he was also in that circumstance. I feel like he put himself in that circumstance because his style of play was hard for Kevin Durant to get along with. It was hard for a lot of these stars to get with, and that's why when you see a Victor leave, an Ibaka leave, a KD leave, they do better or thrive without him. Now, granted, I'm not saying he's a bad player. He's amazing. And what he's doing in Washington right now is awesome. But like his triple doubles now are translating to wins. Like that's what Washington needs him to do. But I just felt like then that's not the player we needed you to be. Like still be Westbrook because he's all gas, no breaks. But if we want to win a championship, we can't have you taking more shots than Kevin Durant. So I feel like when he did that, Kevin Durant's not a confrontational dude from what I see. It kind of just rubbed him the wrong way and he finds a better situation for himself. So I feel like he put himself in that situation. So of course, if you put yourself in a place where you're the main guy, you take away the main guy, of course the team's not going to be as good.
But I can also see why he, quote unquote, put himself in the situation, because we saw times where Kevin Durant was their guy and they didn't win then. So I mean, as a player, it's only so much, because like you said, Kevin Durant isn't an alpha.
Right.
So it's like it's hard for a guy like Russell Westbrook to bow down to a guy who isn't, not necessarily making him because he's a grown man, but he's not demanding him to do that. And it's even LeBron James thing. And LeBron James isn't an easy guy to play with either. Yeah, guys have to change their game. Kevin Love has never been the same player that he was in Minnesota when he got to Cleveland. Chris Bosh turned into a spot-up guy when he played with LeBron in Miami. So being hard to play with, or not the easiest person to play with, I don't think is a bad thing, because this other guys is the same way. But I think I can't say that Russell Westbrook put himself, because like you said, I've never heard anybody say anything bad about Russell Westbrook. Paul George had an MVP caliber season next to Russell Westbrook. So I don't know. That's an iffy one, because that's just, like James Harden. James Harden, what would you say about him? Like in that year he had with the because they were the ones competing against each other for that MVP, right? They played against each other in the playoffs too. So what would you have said? Like, why would James Harden be the MVP over Russell Westbrook that year?
I think they're very similar in the aspect of the way that Westbrook's all gas, no breaks. I think Harden's a little bit more finesse. Obviously, he's more of a perimeter game. He can shoot better, manipulates the defense better. But they're both statistical juggernauts that I hate to use the word shrink, but their statistical juggernaut, like the way they play, doesn't translate to winning basketball games. And I don't think it's true value, if that makes sense. So when it was between them two, I was like, okay, I get it, because statistically, the dude's averaging 35 points per game. He's unguardable. Like, I'm not mad at it. I just don't think he's more valuable than certain players, because the word value is, like, I think there's only a handful of valuable players in this league. Like, I think Jimmy Butler is actually really valuable. because he'll get it done on two ways. The Heat clearly are not the same team without him as they are with him.
Than James Harden.
Yes,
And I would say why?
because what he offers his team. Like I don't think James Harden. I think James Harden's probably is the better player. I think Jimmy's more valuable because of what he does for that locker room, what he does both on defensively, offensively. The Miami Heat are not the same team without him as they are with him. And the same thing about Jimmy is like it's the cultural aspect of it. I don't know. It's like Chris Paul, I think, is more valuable. Wherever he goes, he wins. He's not a better player than James Harden. Like I think Steph Curry's more valuable. You can make the debate he's actually better than James Harden, but there's a handful of valuable players. But there's statistical players that are way better than them.
Because like the Jimmy Butler thing, Jimmy Butler had the year last year and he was good and everything. But like other than that, Jimmy Butler ain't really been like James Harden has won more than Jimmy Butler. Like Jimmy Butler with the Timberwolves, they made it to the playoffs. It was like the 8th seed or whatever, and they lost to James Harden in the Rockets. James Harden was a part of the Thunder team that went to the finals. James Harden was with Chris Paul, went to the Western Conference Finals. James Harden, James Harden has won a lot of basketball games.
Yeah, he's a baller. He's a baller.
Had a nice little run with the Heat. I respect their run. That was a good team. I'm not expecting them to do the same thing this year. Jimmy Butler is a good basketball player, but like I don't think Jimmy Butler is one of the most valuable players in the league. I don't. I'm not even gonna lie. He's a particular guy that everywhere he goes, that locker room stuff doesn't work. As we saw the last years with the Bulls, it didn't work. Rondo didn't like how him and Dwayne Wade was dividing the locker room. We saw it rubbed it the wrong way with the Timberwolves. Whether we agree with Jimmy Butler or not, the way he went about it clearly wasn't the right thing to do. And then the Heat is a place where it did work. Luckily for Jimmy Butler, it did work. And that's why I give him credit for being smart enough on picking the team he went to, because a lot of guys try to click up. But Jimmy Butler went to a team that really didn't have a guy that he would have to coexist with. Jimmy Butler from day one when he signed with the Heat, he was their best player. It wasn't a guy that was going to be able to challenge him in the locker room versus the other spots. Chicago had Derrick Rose, Joakim Noahs, and Taj Gibsons and guys that he learned from. And then as he accelerated or progressed, those guys kind of went out the door anyway. Then he went to the Timberwolves, who this team belongs to Karl, Anthony Towns, and Wiggins. They're our number one picks. So Jimmy Butler you can't come in here and just talk to us any type of way. Whether it's wrong, we're not going for that. So now he has to leave. And then he says, wait, since I can't go around and boss people around and talk to people crazy any old type of way, let me find somewhere where it will be accepted. And I think he did a marvelous job in picking the Heat because they are culture. But I can't give him the credit of saying that he did anything there significantly, because with or without Jimmy Butler, the Heat have always been a culture team. So he kind of went in into they shit and was the best player on that subpar team.
That's true.
I can't say he's more valuable than like James Harden. If we traded Jimmy Butler to the Nets the way that they did with Harden, I don't think the Nets are as dangerous as they are now, if that makes any sense.
No, I agree. That's a really good point. But the only thing, and that's all true. He luckily landed in Miami, because say Miami wasn't a good fit, we wouldn't be talking about Jimmy Butler the same way we are now, because it's like, wow, you thrived okay, you did okay in Chicago, but then Minnesota wasn't good, Philly wasn't good, and if Miami wasn't good, that was like, oh.
Thank you for bringing up Philly, because I totally forgot it. Exactly.
Yeah. But like I look at the last MVPs, if I remember correctly, like the last MVP to win a championship was Steph Curry. So it's like all these valuable players, granted it's a regular season award, it's like James Harden did not prove to be the most valuable in the postseason. Like Giannis was not the most valuable in the postseason. And it's like, I just find it weird that we always critique the MVP, but we don't ever change the format with how we judge it. It's like 1 year it is narrative. 1 year it is statistical. Like, because if you go off statistics, Giannis is having the same statistical year he is this year as the years he won it. So why is he not the favorite to win it? And the Bucks are on doing well now.
That's always been my biggest criticism. I don't believe in a narrative. Narratives are just whatever. They're gonna write themselves, or somebody you can make a narrative right now. So I that never mattered to me. I just know from doing this for so long now that it is a part of it for whatever reason, because the media, who likes to often create the narratives, pick and vote or whatever. But I agree with you. My biggest thing with the flaw is that it is a regular season award, because for us to sit up here and say that the regular season is just like it's important, but it's not important as that postseason. It kind of makes it hard to value a regular season award. Like, for us to value the playoffs as much as we do, why are we making the MVP just a regular season award? And then a person will counter argue with that, because I've said this before, and they say that the postseason award is the Finals MVP, which I don't necessarily agree with, because if that was the case, how do we get guys like Iguodala winning it? He had the best series, but he wasn't their best player throughout the playoffs.
And he wasn't the most valuable in that series.
He won the award, so we have to call him the most valuable. He won the award. That is what it is. He won the award, so I'm going to give him his credit. We're never going to change this, so whatever. He was the most valuable. But that he wasn't the most valuable in the playoffs. So don't get an MVP for the playoffs. So I don't know. But I do know if we change anything, there's going to be a lot of upset people. Because I agree. There's a lot like Steve Nash, incredible, but I am not a fan of Steve Nash winning two MVPs. I'm a Bryant fan all my life, and for him to have more MVPs than Iverson,
Kobe has one.
Kobe, these are all guys that Steve Nash has more MVPs than. It's kind of crazy. So there's definitely, I don't know, it's definitely something that's not right about it, but man, I really don't care at this point, because I've seen so many of my favorite players be cheated out of it for narratives, or I guess narrative, because even in those years, Kobe statistically was better than Nash, Shaq statistically, Iverson statistically was better than guys, but narrative.
The next thing I want to throw at you that I know is going to get pushed back, you're a LeBron guy. It has nothing to do about just being a LeBron guy. If they always hand out this award of who would you start your franchise with, and they like GM select a player. To me, it would be LeBron James, because if my job is to win a championship, like my family is getting moved to a location, I'm getting paid to win. Why in the world would you not choose a LeBron James, who's proven to be the best winner right now in a circumstance to build around, if that's the category? And a lot of people build off young players, but as this is my job and my career, I'm not worried about the future. I need to win now to maintain my job. I'm picking LeBron James to build my team around. If you, Pierre, were a GM right now and you had to choose one player to build around, who would it be?
But I think a lot of people don't choose LeBron because it's such the easy answer. And it's like that. Look how short our conversation would be. LeBron James. Then you would go to the next question, because it's not, you know what I mean? So I think people try to make it fun and different. Which I can respect. Sometimes there's no need for that. You just pick the answer, like we talk about with the draft. There's no need to overthink. You just get Cade Cunningham and you call it a day.
Yeah.
But this type of hypothetical, I can see why people wouldn't pick LeBron. If I asked the question, I would exclude a guy like LeBron, because I think that that's just a no doubt answer. So now I'm gonna flip the question to ask you: if you can't pick LeBron James, who are you starting Chaz around?
You're good. I would say, I think Kevin Durant's the second best basketball player in the world, but he has an injury history. But if I had to, I would pick Kevin Durant. I think he's just the most unstoppable player. Offensively, I think he's the best offensive player. It would either be Kevin Durant, or I know a lot of people won't like this because he technically hasn't proven to win a championship by himself, or the Finals MVP would be Steph Curry. I think he just changes the whole dynamic of a game. I think he's very easy to play with because he's not ball dominant considering how many times he shoots. And I think a lot of players want to play with him, and I know what I'm getting with him. Like, he has his injury history, but I think a lot of players do now too. But I know what I'm getting with him day in, day out, like emotionally. Like, he's not going to be arguing with people. He's not going to say something crazy to the media. I think he's just like an emotional rock. So I'll go, you know what? I'm going to change it. I'm going to go Steph Curry. If it's not LeBron, I'm going to go Steph.
That's a great answer. And I think that creates a better conversation than just anybody with a proper sense is gonna take LeBron, right? I mean, it's the guy that went.
No, but that's the thing. They're choosing Karl Anthony Towns. They would choose Anthony Davis. I'm like, come on.
I think it is what you mentioned earlier, though. They're looking at like the future. Because I mean, if you are building around for LeBron to win, as much as I love LeBron, he needs quite a lot of help. So you got to consider, if you're not getting that help, like if we were doing a draft and we're drafting and I get the first pick this round, but then the next round I got to get the last pick, I might not take LeBron. I may not want that first pick to take LeBron. I may want to be in the middle so I can draft again, and I'd rather put together a more competent team than just having LeBron, because then you have LeBron with that Cavaliers team, where it's Jordan Clarkson, George Hill, and he's getting swept in the finals. So but you got to win. He got swept, and I'm a guy.
Right. I'm just saying, what other player? I mean, okay, let's take the most talented players in the league. Luka didn't go to and he's young. But the question is like right now. But Anthony Davis wasn't going to the finals. James Harden wasn't going to the finals. Kevin Durant, last time he's done it as the guy is the Thunder, and granted the
guy on Golden State. He was the best player on Golden State.
But that Warriors team was already like that, is what I'm saying. They're 73-9. They're established.
With him, they sweep LeBron. It's not even a challenge.
True.
Without him, it's an uncertainty.
But they're going there.
They're going there, but it's an uncertainty. And they're not a right end to go there, because they were down 3-1 to Kevin Durant's Oklahoma City Thunder, which is why I would never understand why he left, because they were that close to beating him with Russell Westbrook. And that's why it's like, it can't be Russell Westbrook's fault. They were up 3-1. Everything was rolling. And then if you go and you check the history, nothing changed except Kevin Durant's play.
Right.
Russell Westbrook didn't start doing anything. When they got up 3-1, Russell Westbrook then started just jacking up shots all of a sudden and just start being out of character. Durant was the guy that was out of character. He was the guy with the fourth quarter turnovers and shit like that was like, what is this coming from? Not saying that Russell Westbrook doesn't get any fault to them losing, because they all lose as a team. But when you go back and you watch, number one, Klay Thompson had an incredible game.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
But then after that, Russell Westbrook maintained the same type of play. It was Kevin Durant who kind of did some uncharacteristic things for him. But they were up 3-1 with Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant on that team. So that whole idea of Russell Westbrook putting himself in that situation, I don't get it. But like you said, Steph Curry is a guy who's more laid back. So, of course, Kevin Durant went there. But I don't know. But, yeah, I think that we just had a better conversation by excluding LeBron James.
That's true. That's true.
I think that they should, when they poll, they should do like, okay, who you starting your team with 25 and younger. That would be better than to just, Karl-Anthony Towns did win it. Like years ago, he had a stretch where he was dominating that poll.
Yeah, I was like, bro, this isn't right. But who are you going with then? If I had to flip it back to you.
Who am I going with? I like the Steph Curry answer. But I do know that Steph Curry is a guy that is targeted on defense sometimes. I think Kevin Durant is a good one. My mind wants to gravitate to Kawhi Leonard. My mind is gravitating to him. I'm not the biggest Kawhi Leonard fan, but when you think of two-way, I could put him in a system. He doesn't really hurt me in any way. He may not be as dominant as LeBron and Durant and Curry. He doesn't dominate you in any way, or the way he would dominate you in the past defensively is kind of more boring than them lighting it up. But he doesn't hurt me in any way. For the most part, healthy when it counts. He can sit out 40 games if it's going to mean he's going to play in the postseason. I don't really care about that. He makes some big shots. His game is simple, so he's not, you know what I mean? It's not like he's hard and he's just pounding for 20 of the 24 seconds out of the shot clock. The way he likes to play is more reliable than me. He's not scared to take mid-range jumpers. And that's how I like to play basketball. I like threes and everything, but I do understand that when it's crunch time, we want to find the simplest baskets. And I like guys like that. I'm also a big Paul George fan.
You're a Clippers guy, huh?
I am rooting for the Clippers. When the Western Conference playoffs start, I will be rooting for the Clippers. I am a Knicks fan, so I'm rooting for my Knicks, obviously. But I wouldn't mind a a Philadelphia 76ers versus Clippers finals to just shock the world. Everybody's thinking Brooklyn, LA. I would like it if it's Philly, Clippers. That would be nice.
All right, we're about to get into that, but I have one crazy other thing I need to throw at you. If you, Pierre, were a commissioner of all commissioners and you could change one rule in 3 different sports, what would it be? Like mine would be NBA change your. I wouldn't do the draft thing. I'd say change your MVP award. I would say NFL limit your preseason, and MLB you may not like this, shorten your regular season. That would be my 3 sports that I change one rule. What would yours be?
Not opposed to the 162 change, but again, the players are hurt by that because now it's like, how is anybody going to ever break the home run record with now the game straight? It already took. Nobody was breaking it in 162 games. Now if we make the season 100 games and 62 less, nobody's damn sure breaking the rule now. But I would change. I would change shifting. In baseball, we're not doing the shift anymore. You know what I mean? I know you're not a big baseball guy, but I'm a left-handed hitter. So what teams do now, because I'm a left-handed hitter, I pull the ball to the right side of the field. So what teams do now is they shift their infield and their outfield to the right because they want to pull the ball there. That makes a left-handed hitter out of his element. Now he's just hitting the ball for rights of 7 players. I don't like that. Let's allow players to be able to hit the ball. You don't want a guy to hit the ball, pitch to him, and strike him out. Don't shift your entire defense there. That's an analytic thing where it's like 95% of the time he hits the ball. Mm-hmm. Now we're going to shift our defense. I'm not a fan. I get it. It's smart, but it takes away the game. We want to see shit happening. We don't want to see. I know you're not a baseball guy. We don't want to see Joey Gallo or the Texas Rangers, one of the most powerful hitters in baseball. Literally, he's only hitting a home run or he's striking out or lining out because y'all give him no other options. The most craziest part of the field that he uses is taken out now. Crazy. So that would be my thing for baseball. And I would try to implement something that could speed up the game. Right now, I'm being annoyed as a baseball fan. I'm watching a lot of baseball, and a lot of guys are taking a lot of time to get to the next pitch. So, like pitchers, they'll throw a pitch, wipe their head, take their hat off. They're looking inside their hat for the pitch signals. It just takes too much time out of the game. Right. MLB is right now trying to speed the game up, but those are the things that they should eliminate, to speed the game up. They also have this dumb rule where it goes to extra innings, they put a guy on second. They start you out for the guy on second. I don't like that. That's not a way to speed up the game because it just whatever. Football, they actually changed the rule that I would change. The numbers thing. I always hated that. Like, I come from the era where Reggie Bush was at USC. He gets drafted by the Saints and he wants to wear number 5. And the NFL says, no, that's not a running back's number. They recently changed it, though, now. So running backs can wear 5 and wide receivers can wear single-digit numbers. That would have been something I would have changed.
Okay.
So that they did change that. And then with the NBA, what would I change with the NBA? I like, for the most part, I like everything the NBA does. I mean, I maybe would change the draft rule back to high school. That may be it. It's not too much I would change with the NBA. I see they try to do like little rules things on 2K. I don't really like them where like one free throw is worth 2 now. I'm not a fan of that. They extend the shot clock. Not a fan of that. Shorten the shot clock. Not a fan of that. Yeah, I wouldn't have any. I wouldn't have anything. Now off the top of my mind, I wouldn't have any rules changed to NBA. I'm trying to think. I know that did you hear that they're making a play-in permanent?
It's permanent, or is it just for these pandemic games?
About to be permanent. They're about to make it permanent.
A lot of people are against that. I'm not really against that. I think it's interesting. I hear a lot of people say, well, you've had the whole season to place yourself in position to make the playoffs. Why are they giving them an opportunity? I just think it gives people an extra thing to talk about. And I just think it gives them another opportunity to pay attention to what's going on. That's the only reason that I feel that they're creating it. So you get an opportunity like Zion, who may not make the playoffs. You get him in a playoff game. That's must-see TV.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan. I mean, I'm not opposed to it really.
I'm not opposed to it either. I'm not opposed to it either. What I am opposed to, though, what I will say is the 7th seed. Maybe I would change that. I think that the play-in game should have nothing to do with the 7th seed because the 7th seed, to me, they've done everything that the other teams have done. They've solidified themselves far enough from the rest of the pack to be a playoff team. The 8th seed should be what people are playing for. You have the 8th, 9th, and the 10th seed all playing against each other for the 8th seed. Why is the 7th seed involved?
Wait, so no matter how many games above the 7th game seed is above the 8th, they're involved?
They're involved.
No, yeah, I don't like that.
Then yeah, right? Because it's like at the 7th seed, we did our job.
Yeah, I don't.
We weren't just a hair away from making it. We solidified ourselves as one of the top 7 teams. The 8th seed is the team that barely made it or whatever. So they should be the team that play, the 9th and 10th seed should play against each other. And whoever wins plays against the 8th seed for the 8th seed. And that should be that. But I think the format is 7 and 8 will play against each other. 9 and 10 will play against each other. And then they'll play the winners of those games. So if the 8th seed beats the 7th seed, they're now the 7th seed. And then the loser of that game would have to play against the 9 or 10 to be the 8th seed. So
Right.
the 7th seed could lose it all, potentially.
Yeah, I don't like that. I think I like what you said better. 9 and 10, they play the winner. They play the 8th seed. 7th is fine. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
That's weird. Yeah, I don't like that. And they're doing that for obviously the East and West.
Yep, for the East and West. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. I mean, I may would also change the rule, but I guess it really doesn't happen. But you remember that time where like the Suns won like 43 games and didn't make the playoffs?
What year was that?
Okay. This is like they have Gerald Green, Goran Dragic.
Yeah. Yes.
Their coach was Hornacek, and they didn't make it. Like at that time, as a GM, they would have to play in. I'm sorry, but like 40, you know what I mean? Like a 40 winning team is not going to just miss the playoffs just because. I would do a lot of off the rip type things. Like I don't know, man. Like you could be an all-star whenever you are. Like we have this rule now where it's like rookies can't be all-stars. Like why is that a rule?
No, yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
You know what I mean?
That doesn't make any sense. If you're good, you're good. Shouldn't matter what year. Like Amani Bates could get drafted right now if he could enter. Like there's just stuff like that.
I'm also not a fan of like the defensive player of the year seems to be big man heavy oriented. It's so much easier for them to win. But to me, it's the game has become so perimeter centric that it's like more guards and perimeter defenders should be in the conversation. This year, we actually have Ben Simmons really creeping up into that conversation. I'm rooting for him to try to win it. But yeah, it always seems big man dominant.
Yeah.
In the past, because you had the guard, the Shaqs, Elijah ones, it was a big man heavy game. But now, for it to be so perimeter centric, why are big men still dominating that award?
Because they're not getting any other award. Probably. I mean, it's Ben Simmons should get it. He would have my vote. I really like Jaylen Brown. I don't think he gets enough credit defensively. I know he's doing more offensively, so sometimes he may take a little bit more plays off than he used to. But he defensively, I remember when he was playing Braun in Cleveland. I'm like, Jaylen Brown is ridiculous on both ends. And then you also, I would put, I think Bam Adebayo will eventually win a Defensive Player of the Year because I think he's very versatile. Like even though he's a big man, he can do a little bit of everything.
He is why I get why a lot of other big men get credit because big man defenders like him change the game because they can switch. But like everybody goes crazy because Rudy Gobert can block some shots, and it's like like Bam, like that changes up. And Rudy can switch here and there, but he ain't like Bam switchable. The switchability ain't like that. So yeah, Drew Holiday is also a guy that you ask around the league, everybody's saying that he's the toughest guy to score on. But yet, never highly in the Defensive Player of the Year candidacy.
That happens every year. They talk about he's one of the most underrated players in the league is Drew Holiday.
Yeah, we gotta appreciate him, and nobody appreciates him.
It's crazy. But finally, he got paid though, so I'm glad he got that.
And his teammate Giannis those are the type of guys that have the bone to pick with. Like even the Draymond Green thing, like yeah, being a help defender and like all of that shit is important, all of that. But like I am from the era of where defenders is I'm getting in front of you, and I'm stopping you from scoring. And when Giannis won that Defensive Player of the Year, and then they played the Heat, and he wasn't trying to guard Jimmy Butler when Jimmy Butler was going off, it irritated me.
Yeah.
That's your moment. Just like the MVP. When a guy wins the MVP, now it's playoff time, and it's the last minute. We want to see the MVP do the most valuable shit, whether it's Chris Paul orchestrating things or it's Kevin Durant scoring the last 7, Steph Curry making a big shot. You want to see the value right there. I don't see you being a Defensive Player of the Year when a guy is going off on your team and you're not guarding him.
I'm telling you, that was a really bad playoffs for Giannis. He got the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, and he wasn't doing anything that round. That's why I was so upset. That was like the last straw for me with the MVP award. Like, I've always understood it, but then when it was that, I'm like, come on. And you gave him Defensive Player of the Year, and like you said, not guarding Jimmy. I'm like, last before I let you go, Pierre, is your New York Knicks. So we talked about them creating a new culture. We talked about that new wave. Julius Randle's balling out. RJ Barrett's having a sneaky season too, but because Julius Randle's doing his thing, they're not talking about him as much. You're getting it out. What are your expectations for the Knicks this postseason? And then kind of fast forward if you had to do an early projection of what they're able to accomplish next season. Because obviously you got this momentum going. The fans are kind of rallying behind them again. Is it somebody that they land? Is it just building with the guys that you have? Kind of what's your expectation with the Knicks going forward?
My expectations is you to do what we're doing. I'm a true Knicks fan, number one. I've been a Knicks fan since I can remember. I'm legitimately a Knicks fan. So I've been through all of the lows. I enjoyed this amount of highs when like Melo and Mike Woodson and everybody was on that team and we won like 50 games. We then lost to Paul George Pacers. So I'm just enjoying this. I'm not really putting any expectations on it because we've already had this is a successful season. No matter what happens from now on, this is a successful season. And it really depends. Like if we're the 4th seed and we're going to play the Hawks at 5, my expectation is that we're going to be a second round team. But if we somehow slip and we're now playing against Brooklyn in the first round, as a conscious, realistic fan, I now have to be prepared for us to get bounced, right? You know, so that really plays a big part of it. But like, so if we can maintain, that's why that 4th seed is important because like, if we're playing against the Hawks or Charlotte, I'm strongly confident that we can beat those teams in a playoff series with home court advantage, opposed to having to play Milwaukee or the Nets. You know, those teams are not that they're so much better because defensively we could probably scheme and I got to change my camera.
No, you're good. We'll make it work.
Let my MacBook become my camera. Defensively, we could probably scheme and put together a plan or some type of game plan for the Bucks. But they're experienced. You know what I mean? They've been there. Yeah, you know what I mean? So they're one of the top elite teams. As a Knicks fan, all I want is for us to not have to face one of the top premier teams in the first round. So, and it still could happen. We could still match up with the Heat, the Celtics as well at number 4. But I would want to play a team like the Hawks or the Hornets 4 or 5. We have home court advantage. Or, you know what? Let me not even limit us. Jump up and get number 3 over the Bucks if they keep just snoozing and we're on a 9-game winning streak. So at this pace, it's not far fetched for us to go up and get number 3. Long term wise, I'm not looking at a get. I'm not looking at a player to get. Obviously, if it can happen, of course we'll take it. But when I look at the upcoming free agency, who's going to really be out there that significantly, Lonzo can come in and help us for sure. But other than that, there's no star player. There won't be a Kevin Durant or anybody on the market. I
can see you guys getting a Bradley Beal. Like I can see you guys making something a
now,
move.
That right there would be, I would love it. But as a Knicks fan, it's nothing that I want to get too attached to.
Right.
Because down that road so many times with guys that we would have to trade for. Then it's like, how do we go and get them? Do we trade all of our assets that we finally got going? And so if we do get Bradley Beal, hopefully it's down the line and he doesn't sign some extension with the Wizards and we can get him like that. But I think we can continue to build the culture. Our front office has done a very good job of adding pieces that work well for us. Like Nerlens Noel isn't this name that's you're looking at in free agency like, oh my gosh, but he worked well with us. Reggie Bullock isn't a name on the market that you look at and you say, man, but he works well with us. You know,
Right.
Derrick Rose was a bit of a hot commodity, but he wasn't that big of a hot commodity, but he really worked well with us. So let's continue to do things that matter for us. Let's not worry about what ESPN has to say about what the Knicks doing, because obviously all the people that were laughing, making jokes, criticizing, they clearly don't know shit because the Knicks have blasted everybody's expectations, including myself. So let's just continue to do us, worry about us, and take the small wins and be humble. As a Knicks fan, that's what I'm learning to do, is to be humble. Everybody's so quick to rub it in people's face. I'm not going to do that until we're finally legitimately in the playoffs, and I know where we at. I'm waiting.
Right.
We gotta stay humble because we're not there yet. We can easily lose 7 in a row, and now we're barely getting into the playoffs. So I'm just trying to wait until we finally are in it.
I'm not trying to compare Tom Thibodeau to Phil Jackson, but I'm going to in this aspect. I remember watching The Last Dance. Phil was like so proud how well he did without Michael Jordan. They only went from like 57 wins to 55 wins. They said that was one of Phil's best coaching displays. Even though Tom Thibodeau's greatest success is with the Chicago Bulls, as far he was part of the Boston Celtics roster, but as far as like head coach, you think of the Chicago Bulls, Derrick Rose. This is in a weird way to me even more impressive because what the Knicks were, their reputation, and then the culture he was just able to shift and change within one season. And now, like you just said, winning 9 in a row, the players seem like they're all bought in, they're happy to play. Like to me, this is the most impressive coaching display Thibodeau's ever had.
I agree with you because when you take away the fact that like the Bulls were a good team and everything, which had an MVP Derrick Rose, who had a strong veteran core with Boozer, Dane, Noah. He had a lot of people he could rely on. This was his first season with us, so ain't like he got a bunch of relationships, and so he figured this thing out early. You know what I mean? He figured out how to please guys. Like if you watch some of our games, RJ Barrett not even on the floor closing some of the games. And that's okay because Tom has figured out how to make that work. A lot of guys, I think, fall in that those type of traps where they feel forced to do certain things because they don't know how to move with the players, or they don't want to offend, or they are too afraid. But that's one of the things you got to like about Tiz. Is like he don't care. Like RJ, if I don't think you should close this game out, you're not going to. You know what I mean? Like Derrick Rose. So what? I want Derrick Rose on every one of my teams that I coach. So what? Who's gonna say something about it? You know what I mean? You gotta love that about him. I'm just proud that we got somebody like that to call the shots. Because in New York, I feel like a lot of coaches have fell down that hole of trying to please with the paper. It's New York. You know what I mean? It gets no worse than New York as far as the criticism and the media attention and every single thing you do. Somebody has something to say. Like I gave you an example, not to ramble, but Alfred Payton is our starting point guard. Everybody in Knicks Nation doesn't like it. They cannot understand why he continues to play a certain amount of minutes he does and why he starts. But Tom Thibodeau hasn't changed it at all. And we're on a 9-game winning streak. So when I'm on Twitter and I'm seeing all of my Knick peers complaining about it, I get it. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So he apparently knows something. You know what I mean?
It's fit. He didn't fit in Orlando, but he fits. He seems to just fit what's working in New York. One of the things, I think you tweeted this. I'm like, man, this is my last thing I wanted to hit on. You hit on the money. When Trae Young wasn't playing, how much different that Hawks team is. And then now under Nate McMillan, how dangerous they look. I think they're like 20-7 under him. Oh, you talked about the potential matchup with them. What are your thoughts on the Hawks? I've always said, to me, they're the team of the future in the East because I'm a real big Trae Young guy. What are your thoughts on them and going into the playoffs with the new coaching staff? Obviously, Trae got a little bit injured. Let's just assume he gets healthy and he's good. What are your thoughts on the Hawks? Do you think they're going to make any noise in the postseason?
No, but I think them making the postseason is big. You know, that's a step for them. But I don't think they're going to make any noise. Just because I think right now they're a little easier to defend. That's why I'm so confident against them. Like if I had to pick who I would want to play in the first round, it would be them. Because I know Tom is going to force some people to have to be things that they haven't been. Like we're not going to sit up there and let Trae Young kill us in a 7-game series.
No, you guys are physical.
Huh?
You guys will play. I think you guys are just such a more physical team than they are.
Mm-hmm. So I think we're going to find a way to scheme against Trae Young and make it tough. Trae Young is going to be Trae Young. We're not going to lock him up and, have him being garbage, but he's just not going to do the things that he's been doing to keep them as good as they are. My biggest thing for the Hawks, I like the Hawks. One of my guys is on the team, John Collins. That's my guy. His future with them. I think John Collins is one. And I'm not saying this because it's my guy, but I think he's one of the most underrated fours in the league. He's a modern four. Like as far as being above the rim, pick and pop threes. He's not the best defender in the world, but a lot of the top stars in the league aren't. So I don't understand when guys pick apart guys and like, oh, he doesn't play defense. Well, neither does this top other player that I'm not going to name, but like Steph Curry has never been out there really locking anybody up. But who cares? So why do we pick apart the young talent and be like, oh, John Collins is good, but he doesn't defend? Right. I can name 7 out of the top 10 players that don't.
This is the worst season statistically, defensively. Like we have, I think, like the 3 worst teams in modern era, like are the worst defensive teams in this season.
That's crazy. I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, I think also because it's a shortened season, so they obviously are probably a little fatigued. You got to take some plays off. You're not going to take plays off on the offensive end, so that's probably the reason why. But I think like it was Portland is up there. I forget the other 2 teams, but I saw that because I kept hearing about it. And I think a lot of it is the pandemic, but it also is the way the game was played now. You can only name a really handful of elite people who take pride in being two-way players.
Yeah, and I mean, the fact that we even have to say two-way nowadays shows you that. Like,
that's a good point.
Two-way, like as if two-way is something like this. That's like a football term. He plays wide receiver and cornerback. Basketball, you're not supposed to get a cookie on your job. You're supposed to guard and then play offense. Like that's the part of the game. So. But I do like the Hawks, considering the fact that some of their moves didn't really pan out. Like Gallinari wasn't the player they signed him to be thus far. Kongu was hurt and injured throughout his first part of his rookie year. Cam Reddish and Hunter haven't made some of the steps that we've thought. And Hunter was kind of hurt. So for them to still have had to deal with those problems, they've been extremely good, extremely successful season for them. Because I thought for them to take that leap, Cam Reddish or somebody was going to have to. But, and then Bogdan got hurt. I love Bogdanovich. I love his game. Lou will be getting hot some nights. I like the Hawks, but I do prefer as a Knicks fan for us to play against them because I do think stopping Trae Young is easier than stopping Jaylen Brown, Tatum, and then you got to worry about Kemba, Jimmy Butler, Bam. I would rather play the Hawks. Less experience. They're just as much experience as us. They're a young team too. But the Hawks having a nice season.
Yeah, I'll take your Knicks over them. Pierre, I appreciate you. Where can people listening to this? You're big on Instagram. You're big on Twitter. You got so many things going on. So where can people kind of find you in all those different ways?
Like you said, just on Twitter, Pee Wee the Plug, Instagram, Pee Wee the Plug, HOH. Anything that I'm doing is announced on there. Whether it's pregame picks with Bleacher Report, my show with Famous Ghost that we do on Tuesdays or Thursdays with Bleacher Report. That'll be all over my Instagram the days that we doing that. The Through the Wire podcast on House of Highlights YouTube, Tuesdays and Saturdays. You can find it there. And then, on Instagram, I'm just active talking hoops with guys like Max, who I respect. And same thing on Twitter. If anybody is talking basketball and it's something that I respect and hold some type of value, I'm all for it. But as long as it has value, I'll be seeing a lot of pointless conversations.
Yeah.
I'm so tired of the who's my top 5 small, like things that don't matter. Like people ask me so many questions. I be like, bro, people think that I have like a notepad in my back pocket. Like I'll be like, Chris Paul has moved up in my all-time point guard. Like I don't know what people think. So, but I just love good basketball talk with people whose opinions I respect and make sense. So. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Same to you. I really do. And just a heads up, you better get used to that because it's going to continue to grow. More and more people are going to continue to hit your line with that stuff. So you may have to get a notepad eventually.
Hey, I'm hoping that guys like me, you combo, continue to talk as much as we do, as frequently as we do, whether it's on podcasts, whether it's on the lives. We can start to show people that there's other things to talk about versus a top 10 list that really doesn't matter. Let's talk about potential change in NBA rules. What rule would you change? I would much rather somebody ask me what rule I would change opposed to who is my 7th best point guard of all time. and then they get the answer of a guy neither one of us watch. You ask me my top 10, and I'm telling you, Bob Cousy, Jerry West. These are guys I don't know anything about, but yet they're on my list. Yeah, I'd much rather the conversations that me and you have, man. That's why anytime you hit me up, I'm gonna be there as long as I got the free time. So
it works both ways. Thank you, Pierre. You be safe, and I know we'll talk soon.
Yes, sir, bro. I'll see you.